What's going on, Sumolings? Thank you for joining us for another product walkthrough webinar. We are joined by the team over at Nifty. Nifty is a remote collaboration hub designed to help you manage projects, goals, files, and teams all in one place. It is available on AppSumo right now, starting at just $49 for a lifetime deal. But before we dive in, real quick, I want to tell you 3 quick things. The first is we'd love to hear about your use case and why you are interested in Nifty. And you can go ahead and do that in the chat room on the right-hand side. The second thing is that if you have any questions about the tool or the deal, how to get set up, anything like that, you can leave those questions in the Q&A box down below the video. We will circle back to those questions at the end of the walkthrough. And the third thing is that there will be a replay of this available. So if you need to step out or if you feel like you need to take notes or anything, don't worry, you can watch this as many times as you want. If you are watching in the replay, hello to the future. All right. Hi, Sky. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Lindsay?
I'm doing all right. I'm excited for you to dive into this. I'm going to, what are we supposed to post? Hi, Greg. I was just reading through the chat. If you want to tell us about your use case, you could do that in the chat room. And if you want to ask any questions, you could do that in the Q&A box. I'm going to go ahead and disappear and let you walk us through this, Sky. But let me know when you're ready for those questions.
Yeah, sure. So I'm just going to start. First of all, thanks for the intro there, Lindsay. Very, very well polished. Everything I'm about to say is going to be far less polished. So I want to thank everyone who's either signed up or even considering to sign up for Nifty. We've gotten a pretty good reaction so far from AppSumo, so we're very excited internally. We've got a lot of great feature and product ideas, both on the AppSumo page and in our help center, so I want to thank you for that as well. Just kind of a caveat at the beginning of this, as of this being recorded, by the time you read this in the future or watch this in the future, this won't be the case, but as of this being recorded, our roadmap is not yet live. It will be going live later today. So I'm going to try to steer clear from questions based on, is this feature coming in when? All that will be addressed when we release that roadmap. I might bring up some things in passing, but again, I really want to keep this focused on what's in Nifty as of today. I'm going to start by just kind of showing what it's like to structure a team, as well as maybe different ways to structure your projects, and especially around client workflows. It seems to be very popular with AppSumo. And then from there, I'll be fielding questions. I don't expect this to be, unearthing every last feature within Nifty, but more so about how do we get the ball rolling on here. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to hide my camera, and we're going to kick it off. Okay, and yeah. All right. Let me see. I just want to make sure I can pull those Q&As open. There they are. All right, so what I've done here is kind of gone through onboarding, and I've framed what a team might look like if you are a client-facing agency or something. Actually, Nifty was born from an agency, a design and development studio. So this workflow is going to be loosely based around that. This can kind of be molded to other client delivery workflows as well. First thing I want to draw attention to is our general portfolio. Portfolios are collections of projects. You can almost think of them as project folders that can have certain people assigned to them based on their relevancy to the projects within that folder. These portfolios are permissions based. So our general portfolio is automatically going to bring everyone who joins your team into it. As we can see, we have the full roster here, but then we went and created a custom portfolio for our different client projects, as well as our different internal initiatives. And we can see we have different people assigned to these portfolios. You are automatically invited to a project created in a portfolio if you were assigned to that portfolio, unless specified otherwise. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I just want to touch on the general portfolio, because you can have something like a water cooler project. Here is just, we've just disabled everything in this project except for our discussion channel. So here's just kind of like almost like a built-in Slack channel for our team. Here we're having everyone talk about the SpaceX launch, and I thought they had a really cool futuristic UI. So that's something that our team kind of got to talk about as well. I'm going to transition over to some of our other projects here, because I'm going to start by how do we build a project? Probably the number one question I get in Nifty is, do I start with my milestones first or tasks first? And it's not as simple as milestones or tasks. It really comes down to your workflow. So we're going to build a project first, milestone first, and then task first. And we can see kind of the pros and cons, or maybe the use cases that can help you decide when and why to do this. So first, we're doing our cat dating app. And this one, we're going to start milestone first. And I'm going to collapse the sidebar. What I really want you to think about when you're starting a project is actually, let me go back to the taskbar. I want you to think about how we're going to use task lists. I'm going to move this to Kanban. I want you to think about, how do I use task lists in a project? Are these going to be grouping our tasks based on the phases of our project? Is this going to be grouping tasks based on who should be handling them? And maybe it's somewhere in between the two. And that's where you can start to decide which way you want to go here. So going back to these milestones, I'm going to start with creating a milestone, and we're going to do kind of a onboarding. This is getting the client in the swing of things, and I'm going to do create a task list for this milestone. So now we have our first milestone. And since I hit that tick box for creating a task list, we're also going to see that there is now an onboarding task list here in the project alongside it. So anything we add in this milestone, so we're going to say like a specifications doc, we need to know what we're going to build. Doc, we're going to have a kickoff call. I guess I'm kind of doing these out of order, but just everything we need leading up to really starting that design phase of formalized requirements. And you can see how quickly we can add tasks here inside of our milestone. And you're also seeing that these are automatically appearing in the onboarding task list. That is the list we opted to create when we created this milestone. So here are all these tasks, and you have access to these tasks here in the milestone. It can be lightweight as this. You can just have this be a tick box, and when you go through it, this is going to complete and reflect the progress. Or you can go into a lot more detail by assigning people tags and whatnot, but we're going to hold off on that just for a little bit longer. You'll also see that we automatically picked up the due date of our task list here. So I'm sorry, of our milestone here. So any task that's created in this milestone is automatically going to have the due date of that milestone. You can go in and update that due date manually, but this is just so you have some due date to work with when you're creating tasks within the milestone. Just want to pull up really quickly to mention that I did not introduce Militza, but Militza's on our team, and she's going to be in our Q&A and chat center here in the Zoom to start answering some of these questions that I don't cover during the call, and then we can cover these at the end. Okay, so we created a milestone and a task list tied to it. So now we can see all the tasks that we create in this milestone are in that task list. Maybe you did this backwards, or you want to come in tasks first, and that's okay. So we can say, now we're ready to start the UX design phase of this project. And in UX design, we need the home screen. We need onboarding flow, reset password, and so on, all the things you might need here. Now you can see we don't have a milestone for this, but in theory, this kind of is serving the same way as a milestone. So we can actually kind of retroactively go back and do what we did when we created that milestone task list upon creating the milestone. We're going to go here and say, I want to set this task list as a milestone. And now we see that little arrow kick in here. And that's going to have this milestone appear on our milestone screen. So you can really kind of see that relationship between task lists and milestones upon creation of the milestone, or kind of retroactively turning a list into a milestone. This is one way to frame a project pretty easily. So if now we have UI design, and we don't want to make sure we have all these tasks together. So we can do home screen, UI, and so on. Let's do one more just for good measure. Onboarding, UI. Now, one thing we'll start to realize is, so we can see here that I created a task list. I'm sorry, I created a milestone, but I did not create a task list with it. And now these tasks are appearing in the furthest left column on our task screen, our furthest left task list. That is not a milestone task list. So if you could imagine this is kind of a special type of task list, as is this. This is not. So this is actually what we're going to cover in our second example in a minute. But one of the benefits I really find to doing this is that your backlog, the things you need to do, is broken up by phase. So we can see here, here's everything, all the tasks that are going to pertain to onboarding, everything that's going to pertain to UX. As you can imagine, and we're going to do this in a minute, we're going to see that if we were to have created all of these tasks within the milestone without creating those milestone task lists with it, everything would pile up into one to-do list, or whatever list is furthest left on our task board that's not a milestone task list. Not a bad thing, it's a preference thing. So that's where we're talking about seeing that kind of build up on its own. So let's kind of visit that idea in a second project. And this one we're going to go task, this one we're actually going to kind of do it that way. So we're going to say, let's create onboarding. And we're not using this task list here. We're just going to create the milestone, UX, and UI. When you hit specs, kickoff, call. And so now you can see when we're creating these are going to automatically appear in that to-do list because we did not set a task list for this. So you can see here, I'm going to flip this to Kanban again. You can see here as we continue to do this, home screen UX and home screen UI. All of the different tasks across the different phases of our project are automatically filing into one list. Again, that's not a bad thing. It's just different because we might not be viewing task lists as harbors of our milestones. Maybe this is a completely different use case. So for example, maybe you do more of a to-do, in progress, and review. And so this is where you can say, maybe it just makes sense to kind of keep everything in one backlog and run this out on its own. Or you might want to have one task list that's just designs. So I don't really want to split up my design, UX, and UI tasks because one person's going to be doing all of them. So at the flip of a switch, by assigning them to a list, they're automatically going to be assigned to all the design tasks. Again, there's no wrong way to do this. It's whatever makes the most sense for your project. Another great view that I think is kind of slept on in Nifty is our swim lane view, because this is going to give you all of your milestones intersected with the task lists of your project. So if you do end up creating everything in a to-do list and you want to move things, I did it here, but we can move, let's say we want the kickoff call to be part of UX to do. We can move that into a different milestone, and we see that that picked up the UX milestone here. So this is a great way to kind of very visually move your task lists into the different, or your tasks into the different phases or different milestones of this project. Just gonna take a minute to breathe here because I feel like I'm talking quickly and I'm dropping a lot on you. So again, these are really the two major ways we can frame our projects, or somewhere in between. You might have a review step in more of this backlog style of task list where we're using the milestone task list. And I want to assign this to the guest. So maybe the guest isn't in here all the time. They just need to see the stuff that's ready for review. And so when we have a task ready for them, we drag it here, they're automatically assigned, and they're going to get an email, browser, or mobile notification based on their preferences to come in and take action on that task in Nifty. One more thing I'd like to cover here is the ability to hide. So if you are working on something with a client in a project, you want them involved in the project, but you don't want them to see everything. Maybe you want to have an internal UI internal. Maybe you want to have a UI internal sprint. And this is where you're going to be doing a lot of the kind of ugly iterations, and you just want to present them with the final one or two choices to choose from. You can actually hide a milestone from really whoever, but in this case, we're going to hide it from guests, and we're going to create tasks in it. So now it's home screen UI, and this is really great for fleshing out things internally before the client sees it. And now we'll find that the task that we just created in that hidden milestone is hidden on our task level as well. So in this case, they don't even see this milestone, nor will they see any of the tasks inside of it. If you still feel like your guest is getting maybe a little too intimate with your team in the workflow, you're able to share your task board as a public link, as well as your milestones as a public link. And this is how we will be sharing our roadmap in, shortly after this call. So that's really kind of the high level of framing projects as far as, do I start milestone first or task first? And I think it's really going to come down to, how do you think? Do I think about the phases and what to do within them? Or do I think about, this is what I need to do, and this is how I want a group doing them together? And that's really kind of a major decision point. And a lot of that, I find, typically comes down to the list. We're going to move on. We're going to move into discussions here, because this is where Nifty really starts to come to life as far as having collaboration involved. Clients, when invited to a project, will have access to this discussion channel, so they can give insights into the project. If you want to have kickoff call is on this date, let's say 09/22/20. And you can actually pin this. So now anyone who comes in can find something pinned that they know is important in the project. Or another fun feature with our discussions is to be able to share a task task ID. So for example, if I want to say, here is a task I want everyone to look at, I can look at it, open it up, and have that discussion here if we're not going to have it right in the comment section of a task. So this is a great way to kind of feed that collaboration right here inside the project. We saw how the team might do it internally earlier, but this is where guests can come in and give feedback and just kind of be a little bit more involved in the process. Some other features in our discussions really help fuse them with the other aspects of a project. So for example, if the guest says something like, we need to redo onboarding, we can actually take that piece of discussion and create a task out of it. So I say, all right, we got to redo onboarding. And what list do I want this to be in? And we'll move this to the onboarding list. And so now we can actually create that task in onboarding. Another way to really kind of keep communication and action close together, which is what Nifty does so well. We can also launch a document here in discussion. So if I were to do that, let's say I'm going to create a new new Nifty doc, project specs. And when I post this into the discussion, here's the outline. Everyone will automatically be invited to this document upon dropping it into this discussion. It makes it a public document that everyone can come in and get involved in all together. And you can see that here, everyone is automatically involved. So this is a great way to kind of launch really collaborative experiences right from that discussion channel. You can also start a Zoom call from right here inside of Nifty. We've had a lot of other requests for other tools. Zoom was prioritized due to their kind of ascendance early in the COVID spree, but we are really looking to expand the different solutions that you can have video chats over inside of Nifty. I know Vectera is mentioned quite a bit amongst our AppSumo friends, and it's on our roadmap. Okay, I'm gonna move into docs because we just kind of touched on them really quickly there. But docs Nifty has really two different ways right now to manage documents. We have, as we just saw, our own, I call it the native Nifty notepad. It's our built-in collaborative document. It's kind of lightweight and fun. I wouldn't say it's a word processor. Right now, this does not have version control, but it's a good way if you want to take meeting notes, or if you need to have creative copy, maybe for the homepage of that website or the onboarding for that web app. This is a good place to do it. People can come in and leave comments, drop images in and stuff like that. I liken it to kind of a lighter weight Dropbox docs. You also have the ability to integrate into Google. I'm not going to be able to do that right now because my actual Google account is synced to a different team, but I think I can do that. So we're going to actually be able to create a Google Doc, spreadsheet, or presentation right here inside of Nifty. It's going to also create in Google Drive as well. We're not able to control where that ends up in the drive. So one request we get is, can I put this into a specific folder? I would love to tell you yes, but right now Google is not letting us do that. We're getting a little bit closer with them as our calendar app was already approved, as well as some of other ones. So maybe one day, we're holding out hope. But as we create a document, we'll be able to see do I want this to be a public doc? That is, everyone's automatically going to be invited to this doc and can come in and participate? Or is this something that we want to keep private? And just because it's private doesn't mean it's private forever. You can then selectively decide who you want to have join that document. So we're going to say cat app specs. This is cat dating app is my $1 million idea. If you build it without me, kudos to you, because you're going to be wealthy. Okay, so we're seeing here as the doc loads that we're still in Nifty. And this doc is still in Google. You can edit it from the Google side, and you'll see that change in Nifty. You can put it into a folder on the Google side, and it's still with your Nifty project. So it really gives you a lot of flexibility to mingle with the Google suite while having the added benefit of keeping it with your project. And as you can see, we can still access our team chat from right here inside of the Google Doc. So you're really never cut away from your team. Again, that also works with spreadsheets and presentations. We're looking to build out 2 other ways of working with documents, so it doesn't have to be Google, because we recognize not everyone's in love with Google. Lastly, all the files that come into this project, and let me drop a couple here. Here's one. These. Bag of chips. And so all the files are going to come in, we can manage, we can kind of change the way we view them. We can filter how we want to find these. So if it's a certain file type, you can preview a lot of file types. Currently, you're not able to preview docx, but you can watch an MP4, for example, in Nifty, or listen to an MP3. So it's pretty immersive in that regard. You can also pull files in from your Google Drive or your Dropbox. This is not a direct sync, which means you don't need to worry about all the folders in your Drive or Dropbox automatically flooding into your project. You're going to go select the ones you want, and you can bring those in individually. So we can see how all the different modules within a project really work to keep everything together in one place to answer questions like who's working on what and where do we stand in the project. And that's where our home screen comes into place. And this is customizable on a per user basis. So maybe I'm not really worried about the time we've tracked on this or the files that have been uploaded. I really just want to see, you know what, I want to see the tasks and milestones in one place so I can come in and quickly get a sense of what needs to be done in which list and where we stand in the milestones. Or maybe I want to throw discussions in there as well so I can answer any questions people might have without having to flip through the different tabs. This is kind of like your fun, moldable experience on a per project basis. And again, this is specific to every user. As we saw with the team talk, you can disable any of these modules within a task. So maybe you just want one that's docs and files that's easy to find for your content or onboarding team, something like that, more of a resource project, and that's very doable. We've not talked much about this internal project here, but this is really the non-client stuff. So let me back up here, because when we invited a client into this project, they're only going to have access to the details in this project, and they're only going to have access to the details we showed them in this project. So for example, this task is hidden. The content we upload onto it is hidden. We can hide docs from them. So they don't see all of that, but they also don't even see the name of the portfolio they're in. So you can comfortably invite all of your clients into one portfolio, or their projects, I should say. You can create all of your client projects in one portfolio, and then really, have that be like your account owner's ownership. And this is one idea to use it. Some people, if they have a lot of different projects with one client, will ultimately end up creating different portfolios for different clients. But we also want to have an internal project. And this is really just like our sales and marketing efforts. For these, I worked off of our pre-made templates. But you can see here, I just quickly assigned Angie to all of these different lists. So she's going to be involved or assigned to every project or every task within this project. But this is also a good opportunity to discuss permissions within a portfolio, because we can see that I created this portfolio, so I'm involved in it. But David and Angie are also both invited to this portfolio. So they're both in both of the projects in this portfolio. And if we were to create a new one and not specify otherwise, they would automatically be invited into that new project as well. But let's say maybe our content marketing needs one of our designers in there, and we don't want to give them access to everything in the portfolio. I can just invite them specifically to the project. And in that case, let's get Carlos in here. And now Carlos is only in this project, but he is not part of the portfolio at large. He's not going to see any of our sales efforts going on. So this is an example of how to use project permissions and portfolio permissions to kind of give people access to some or all of the content within a portfolio. Like we saw that hide feature earlier used on guests, you're able to hide items in here as well. So if I want to hide this from all people on the team, I can do that and then do a manual override. So if I want to hide this from everyone, but then assign, let's just ignore Angie in this case, assign Carlos to it. Now only Carlos and I can see this project, or I'm sorry, see this task. This permission really runs up to your permission level. In this case, I'm the account owner, so I can hide it from anyone. If I'm a team member, I'm not able to hide things from admins. So you can really hide up to shoulder length. So we've seen where to get access to information within our different projects. And I'm actually going to go in and assign myself to a few things here just for a little bit of context. And let's give these some due dates. Oh, these have due dates. Okay, great. And I'll do that in here as well. Let's give me this entire list. So now I want to see where everything stands across all of our projects. And that's what's going to be up here. This is where we can say, all right, I want that overview experience. This is all the milestones for all the projects I'm a part of running in tandem. And again, I want to highlight that what I said just now. It's everything I'm a part of. So if I'm not part of one of these projects in any of these views, I will not have access to the content within it. But I can see everything that's going on, all the progress that's being reflected. It's that same milestone experience. So I can actually go in and get updates or update these myself. Or if I want to go in and say, you know, what's up with this? Where do we stand? You know, Carlos, what's the deal? What's the deal, Carlos? And so this is really, I call this the captain's chair of the project, or of the team rather. This is all of our timelines. So you can get a good sense of that. And you can export these reports as well. You can also filter this by specific portfolio. So I just want to see where our client projects are running right now. I'm not worried about our individual internal projects. Workloads is where you're going to be able to see what's on everyone's plate in kind of a resource Gantt. So we can see here, I have a lot due today, but I'm looking pretty good after that. And Angie maybe wants to pass me one of these tasks to make it a little lighter on her. So that's a good way to kind of make resource decisions on the fly right here. We can also see, now I've not touched on this in this webinar, maybe we'll address this in some of the questions, but if we are starting to use story points or kind of the resource tracking tool, it's popular amongst development teams, but I've seen teams of all types use it. I'll be able to get a sense of my personal points as well as project and portfolio points here. So this is where it's going to roll up that level of resource reporting as well. Again, we haven't really covered that. Maybe we will, or maybe we can do that in a future webinar. Next, we have the team calendar. And you notice that this starts with a configuration filter. If you can imagine that your team is a lot bigger and you might not want to see everything all the time, it's not all relevant to you, you can go through and say, look, like I was mentioning before, I only want to see what our client projects look right now. So I'm going to kind of turn on that filter and I can weed out a lot of other things. This is great for people who are maybe higher up in organizations. And while they need to remain involved in everything, it's not all necessarily as pertinent on their calendar. So this is where I can really filter what I want to see and where. Again, this is a team calendar. So I'm going to have access to the things that I can otherwise have access to in the projects within them. I can also go to a list view here and get some of my filter options. So I can say, look, I just want to see everything that Carlos is assigned to. Or maybe I want to see, let's use some of our tags here. I only want to see items that are high priority. And so this is a really great way to cut through a bunch of different tasks on your team's plate to get kind of sharpened insights across your projects without having to visit however many Kanban boards or lists you have. This is not where you're going to find the calendar integration though with GCal. That's a personal calendar. So under my tasks, where I know what I need to do and helps me prioritize my day based on due date, I can also sync this to my Google Calendar and get those events in there as well. I find a lot of people, once projects are already made and they're not in a project manager role, if they're really kind of in there, if they're a designer, they might spend a lot of their time in my tasks because this is going to help prioritize what they need to do without having to visit all these different projects. And so I can say, all right, we just did our 2 kickoff calls. I'm going to move this to a different list. This is now in review. So you can see how much power you have from here. This, in many ways, is a one-stop shop once you've really framed your entire team. I brushed on it really quickly, but we have direct messaging for everyone on the team. So if I want to leave a note for myself, say, I got to call AppSumo after this, and I don't need to make a task for that. I just want to leave a note. Or if I need to message Angie, what's for lunch? Want to order Thai. Now the days of maybe ordering food with your employees are gone for now, maybe not forever. Or if I want to create a group chat, I can say, let's say Angie and Carlos, we're all big fans of Queer Eye. So let's talk about this week's episode of Queer Eye. And so this is where you can really have those fun cross-team, even smaller group discussions that don't need to be part of a project. A couple of more things to cover here, and then I'm going to start opening up for questions. You can flip to dark mode here. That's one of our most asked questions. And then also I'm going to go into my settings because this is where I can start to control how I want to be notified of things from Nifty. I personally, as you can see, do not like getting emails from Nifty. I get enough emails in any given day. And I have Nifty open all day on my browser and I have it on my mobile phone. So I rely on these two to get insights from Nifty, but it's different for everyone. So you can really customize that to your benefit. Lastly, in there, we have the App Center. So this is where I'm going to manage my personal integrations. There are other integrations. As the team owner, I have access to the team integrations, so I can kind of establish these for the entire team. If you're not the team owner, you're just going to be working off the personal integrations. I'm sure there's a lot more I haven't covered, but I think this is a good time to open it up for questions so I can start answering other people's questions.
Let's go for it. All right. And Sumolings, if you have any more questions that you want to add to the Q&A box, now is your moment. We're just going to rock and roll through these. Is there a template for using Nifty to capture a company's strategic plan and their chosen initiatives, then manage those initiatives as projects?
So the way I'm hearing this question is that this project is not managing the initiatives, it's more so for capturing them. What I would recommend is creating a project. Let's do it in general. So I'm going to create a project that says like project intake. And you can either, a couple ways to go about this. Depending on how you intake these different project requests, if you get them via email, every project has its own email address that you can forward these emails to, and based on the structure of that email, and you can find that information right here in the Help Center article, based on the structure of that email, that's either going to appear as a task or a piece of discussion in your project. Just to be clear, you need to be a part of that project. The email that's forwarding that project to that project needs to be part of the project, and that's a security and spam filter, so that way you can't have random people forwarding stuff to you. If you use an external intake tool, like I know one popular one is Typeform. If you have a Typeform or a Google Forms, you can have that create a task inside of a project. And then from there, you can have your decision funnel built out. So this is maybe, we're going to rename this to intake. And then from there, we can review and decide, and we can have an approval list and then maybe a rejected list. So project A comes in, and let's say we're going to make sure I'm assigned here. So I just know when these projects come in. We can move it to here, which this is maybe a group effort to talk about. I'll have my biz dev in here as well. We can make a decision on this and maybe we approve it. And then when we're ready, we can actually, let's say part of that Typeform integration has the budget for the project and some of the details, and what I can do, since this is now kind of valuable to making that decision and framing that project, I can move this to a new project. So I'll go ahead and create a project for this, and then I can move this to that project so we can kind of work off this as the template for the specs, the outline, the requirements for that project. Hopefully that answered the question.
Awesome. Thank you. That was very thorough. Can you explain the storage limits? We have 3 codes. Yeah, storage limits.
I would, just because I don't have that off the back of my head or back of my hand, I would request that you just either go to the help center or AppSumo page. I would think that that's been covered by now. I don't want to give the wrong information here. So
Cool.
if we could just, visit one of those resources and they'll give you a definite answer.
All right. What are the story points in a milestone?
All right. We covered it. Cool. So story points a lot of the times are used in development workflows. They don't have to be. Again, I've seen teams of all types use them successfully. But you can think of story points as a way to grade out how heavy a task is. You might say, well, that's what due dates are for. But I know a lot of development teams, especially when they're talking about something like a bug that comes in and they don't necessarily know, they need to give an estimate for how much time that might take, or if you're working on a new feature, it's a good way of kind of basing the weight of an initiative. So let's take this milestone here. We're in the cat dating app. Story points. We're going to say this is 3 story points, and there's no, I'd say right now a story point equates a day of work. So in this case, we estimate this to take 3 days of work, and we're going to do redo onboarding. Let's say this is 2 days of work. Okay. So now we have 5 total story points on this, and we can say we finished the redo onboarding, and that story point is now reflected. That difference is reflected on milestones. So it's a good way of gauging the weight of a task as it pertains to a milestone. But now, as we were discussing before, these roll-ups continue. So on workloads, I'm not sure we had anyone assigned to those tasks. Let me jump back real quick. I think we did it in. Here we go. Okay, so this is assigned to me. So let's go to workloads, and for some reason it's not appearing right now, but you are able to see, let's give it a refresh. You're able to see those points rolled up on a user basis, a project basis, and a portfolio basis. There we are. So I have 2 of 5 story points. That means I can gotta get a sense of how much has been assigned to me and how much of that I've completed. Similarly, in that overview, I wanna look at, we can see what's the overall weight of this project. So I can get a good sense of this is what we're looking at here. And I can also do it based on our portfolio. So we can see the portfolio, all portfolios add up here. So it's really a resource management tool. And we've just started our foray into this. So you can expect more improvements to come to that. Hopefully that answered the question.
Awesome. Thank you. And I do want to just let everybody know that we do have a lot of questions in here. So if it takes a minute to get to yours, that's what's going on. We've got a lot of open questions.
And if I'm being a windbag, let me know and I can try to go through these quicker.
Yeah, we might want to spend a little less time on each question just because we've got 57 open ones here.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we're gonna quickly fly through these, I think. All right. So how do you add followers in a tasks? Like one person should assign the assigned task and others keep in the loop as just followers.
Sure. This is a quick one. If you're assigned to the task, you're automatically subscribed to the task, which is that little bell icon, which means you're going to get updates on that. You can come in and subscribe yourself to a task that you're not assigned to if you also want to remain updated on that task. So it's that little bell, subscribe, and that's how you do it.
Awesome. What is the best way to set up a client onboarding with tasks associated for onboarding in a SaaS? Is each client a project, or how would that work?
I don't know exactly, but I would say let's keep clients apart just because people can see each other in a project. So I would say you probably want to do that on a per project basis. One thing I would note in general with projects is don't be afraid to close them and start a new one. Some people like to run projects eternally. If you have a client engagement and you finish that scope, feel free to close it and open up a new one with that client.
Great. Are there recurring reminders for tasks left undone, like email reminders?
You're going to get an overdue when a task is due. So first you can set a reminder in advance. So if I want to say, look, this is due that day, but I want a reminder beforehand, you can set a custom reminder and you'll get a notification there. Then you're also going to get a notification. And when I say notification, this is really going to come based on however you built out those notification specs. But that's going to come based on however you set that out. So you'll get one when it's due. After that, you're going to notice that it's going to appear up at the top of your My Tasks is overdue. So it's going to be in your face, and you're going to have to kind of actively ignore it.
All right. Where do you recommend keeping our internal discussion on tasks the clients can see?
If you don't want them to see it, that's where I would use that hide. So and then worst case, if you feel like you had conversation in there that you don't want them to see, you can have more of a presentable task shown for them. But I would hide that from the guest. And that way, if you want to hash out through your designs and butt heads a little bit, because creation is ugly, that's how I would do it. And then you can kind of put your best foot forward on the public task.
Cool. Can you save a milestone task structure as a template for future use?
You can save a project as a template, which involves all of those things. Task templates are going to be out, I want to say days. And then from there, we're going to be rolling out more types of templates. We've started to get some milestone template requests, task list template requests. Those are not as firmly on the roadmap, but I think we can keep an eye out for more types of templates. But again, there's currently a project template, so you can do it that way. And task templates are about to arrive.
Cool. For clarification, does everyone see the same screen with milestones, tasks, documents, discussions?
They see the same screen so long as nothing's hidden from them, but they wouldn't know that. So, yeah.
It's like close friends on Instagram. Okay.
Exactly.
How do you change the default color to a different color?
We have dark mode. This is what we're offering right now as far as different UIs. Some people are dark mode junkies. Go for it.
Cool. What does code do inside Nifty Docs? Does that allow you to embed HTML?
That's correct.
Cool.
Lightning round.
I love it. Does this have automation rules for the Kanban?
The two automations we've seen are the ability to assign someone to a task list, thus assigning them to all the tasks in or that will enter that list, and the ability to complete that task, which then goes to our completed list, which is automatically hidden, but you can reveal it if you'd like to see all the completed tasks. Those are our two automations to date within tasks.
Cool. Can I have named guests interfacing with 3 different people as a client? Named guests. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm not certain what you mean by named guest. They can give themselves a name when they come in. They're not just like guest. I'm assuming that's the question. And yes, they'll be able to participate with your team in a project discussion and on task comments. And if you invite them to any documents, or if they want to leave feedback right on a file, they're just not, we're in a doc, but if they want to leave feedback on a file, they can do that as well. They're not going to have access to direct messaging. Just to be clear.
Can the tasks of the projects be imported with a CSV?
That's on our roadmap. I wish that were live. It's killing me too, but CSV is coming.
It's coming. It's coming.
It's coming.
Amazing. All right. We answered this one. He sent it twice. I love that he really wanted it answered. Okay. Can someone update a task with notes if it requires progress over multiple days?
Yeah. So what we typically do in that case is if you want to like track when that's occurring, I wouldn't use the description. I kind of think of description as static, but if I want to say like, here's today's progress, I would leave that in the comments, because then you're going to get a timestamp for it. So I think that's the best way to go about leaving kind of categorized notes versus a static understanding for that task, which is the description.
Is there any screen recording functionality or time tracking to see what team members are doing?
We have time tracking. You start the task timer, and you can see we can edit this here. This is going to run as a little widget. I'll try to go through time tracking pretty quickly because there's a lot to cover here, but we can edit this automatically. We can see the time log on a task. We can see time logs in a project as well. So if I want to say, what is my time? I want to download a time report for everyone who's been tracking time within this time frame, and I can bring that down as a CSV. It's not time tracking as in like, are your eyes on the screen? We don't have that.
Yeah. If I have a task that happens monthly, can I set it to begin on the third Thursday of every month with a set time frame?
We have recurring based on date. So I can say month. Right now, it's not going to say every third Thursday. You can kind of approximate that with maybe the 22nd of every month, and it's going to come within probably a few days of it. Right now, we don't have a hard and fast date, but you can put a number date to it.
Cool. What is the best use for custom fields in tasks?
Custom fields are really if you need to store more information. So we covered time tracking. You can create a budget custom field to say like the time on this task, I want to multiply it by this to get a budget. Or if I want to have drop downs, this is really good for bugs. If you want to, or inventory management, which product is it? Product. And we can say this shipment is a product B and so on. And so we're going to create this. And now I can create like a drop down and say, just give a little bit more data, metadata on that task. And it creates it in a standardized way that you can save these and have them show up across Nifty. You're also going to be able to, I'm not sure this one will because I didn't save it. Okay, it does. So it starts to show up in your task list view as well. So if I want to kind of, and this is really the beginning of big things with custom fields, as we're going to be able to start to say, put arithmetic in them or ways to sort by custom fields and whatnot.
Awesome. Is it possible to duplicate milestones?
Not exactly. You can have a recurring milestone, but that's not going to recur the tasks within it. So we don't have a duplicate milestone. We're looking to build out the ability to kind of store the tasks within the milestone and then duplicate everything at large. We're just not there yet.
Cool. Is there a difference between using Nifty Windows app to the browser app?
Browser. So when we push updates, browser tends to get them first. And just because a lot of times there's manual updates on those Windows apps, we try to do that not as frequently. So you're going to get the first wave of updates on browser, but your performance will probably be a little better on the native app.
Cool. And I do want to say, I've noticed some people are asking about ETAs on various.
Let's do it.
I'm not gonna ask those questions to you. I just wanted to say that a roadmap is coming today.
Okay. Yeah.
If you're watching this in the replay, it's probably already available. So we don't need to do any ETA stuff. You'll get all of that information extremely soon. I want to prioritize some of these other questions that won't be answered in other places later today. Can we add a status to a task, like waiting for content and progress, etc.? What about labels?
So that's where tags. We offer custom tags already. So we can say blocked, high, low, and medium priority. And we saw how we were able to filter by tags on the all tasks in my tasks screen. But I can also create a custom one. So if I want to say this is web content or something like that, and I can do that. And now we see that. And on that task board, I can say, all right, I just want to see all my tags that are based around web content. So you can get that tagging on that screen as well. So tags right now kind of serve as a hybrid of priorities as well as just other metadata. And you can have multiple tags.
Cool. Can you review dependencies to force task completion before other tasks can be worked on?
Sure. So we have individual task dependencies. If I want to say like, I want to set this dependent on another task to be complete before I can unlock it, but we don't have any other open tasks right now, which is why I'm not getting that available. But let me create something else here. Let's do UX1 and let's just do another task. And so what we're going to be able to see is, let me go through an incomplete one. Another popular way to do dependencies in Nifty is to do them in bulk based on milestones. So I can go ahead and set an entire milestone dependency on this one. In this case, The idea is maybe kind of flipped, but I want to say my UI internal is based on my UI milestone. So now we can see that this task is locked. I can update the information on it, but I can't move it until everything in this milestone is completed. So this is a way to do kind of bulk phase-based, and then we can see this one's unlocked, phase-based dependencies, whereas task give you a little bit more of a linear dependency. When A is done, start B. Dependencies is one thing we got a lot of feedback on so far, so you can expect a lot more improvements and flexibility in our dependencies in the short to short to medium term of our product roadmap.
Awesome. Can I attach a different Google Calendar for separate projects?
Right now, the calendar is user-based. It's not based on projects. So you're going to be using a calendar for you. Now, as we were able to see with me, since I have things tied into my Google accounts, this is really a Google side thing, but you can have access to multiple calendars here based on how those different calendars are tied to your Google account. So presumably you could have multiple calendars in your My Task calendar as well.
Cool. Will the email address change with the custom domain when it's put into place?
Probably, because I think it would have to. So I would say I'm going to go with yes, but that's not something that's a little above my pay grade. That's engineering.
Can you show the calendar view of tasks? That's the whole question. I just want to see it.
Calendar view of tasks. So this is my calendar, and here are the tasks in it. So I can open up a task and find it here. I can create a new task on a specific deadline for a specific project. I can also go into like weekly or monthly and get a better sense of where everything stands. Here we go. Here's some of these tasks. These all have the same deadline, so they're kind of coming up in here. So we don't have a start date on tasks in Nifty. So you're not gonna be able to block like 3 to 5, I'm doing this. But what I've been telling people is set 5 o'clock as your deadline, set a 3 p.m. reminder, and now you just have that kind of drilled into your workflow. This is when I need to do it.
Cool. Is there a place to view all time spent on tasks? There were a lot of questions about the time tracking thing. They seem to really enjoy that.
Okay, so My Tasks is also going to have time for me. I've only logged it in one place, but if I've been logging this in a bunch of different projects, this is going to be my time. For every project, you're also going to be able to have access to, depending on your permissions, that where is it? The time sheets. We didn't log any time here, so we're not going to see any time sheets. So we have project-based time logs and then user-based time logs. You can download those as a CSV on the project or personal level. If you did create manual, see we have this little edited timestamp because I did that manually. When you bring that down to CSV, that will be noted as edited.
Cool. Do story points affect the completion percentage?
Nothing in Nifty will do that. Maybe on your team.
Cool. We've answered some of these. Will we be able to watch this again? Yes, as many times as you want. Truly, we won't stop you. You can memorize the answers. Okay. They're adding. Okay, so they want to know more about task automations. If they completed a task and need an automation that triggers an automated task for the next step to one of my team members, does that happen?
Based on completion, no. That's where we have those task lists. So I can assign someone to a different list if I want to move it down a chain, but I don't believe completed is part of that chain as far as being able to assign people to it.
Cool.
Yeah, so you cannot assign someone to a completed list right now.
What is the best way to run a time report for all projects within a portfolio?
Currently, you'll need to do that by bringing down the time reports on each project as we kind of look to continue to build out reporting on a portfolio basis.
Cool. I'm still seeing so many questions about time tracking. I hope that we've answered them all for you. These questions look like they came in about 10 minutes ago, probably before we addressed it. So,
gotcha.
All right. Lots of color changing. At the moment, a story point is equivalent to a day. Can we change that?
I don't think you can change that at this time. I don't know how hard and fast that's developed into Nifty. I think it is. So right now I'm going to just play it safe and say that's not up for you to change right now. And we currently do not offer increments in time track as be whole numbers. Again, that's something that has gotten a lot of traction since we rolled it out. So you can expect more improvements on resource management and story points in general.
Awesome. Is there a way to auto assign account owners or admin to all projects?
So the account owner is automatically involved to everything in the project. They can have access to everything. For admins, what I would do is assign them to portfolios. And unless a project is made by another admin in that portfolio that does not invite them private, they'll have access to everything. So that's really what I would do, is make sure they're part of every portfolio.
All right. We've addressed a few of these. Is it possible to manually add time without using the time tracker?
Sort of. So as we saw, we were able to edit that widget to input time. But if you want to add time, you could, I guess, in theory. No, I don't think so. Well, so you could download a sprint report, I suppose, a task board sprint report, and then you could create a column in that CSV for the time you've logged outside of Nifty and use that in calculations. I would think that's a workaround.
Great. So Simulings, we have gotten through most. It doesn't look like it because I haven't been closing them, but we have gotten through most of these questions in the Q&A box. So if you have any more, now is your time to submit those, because we're going to wrap up in a little bit. Question about the deal. Is there a lifetime fixed price for adding additional users?
The terms of this are still being kind of solidified, but from what the predominant discussion internally is, yes, it's going to be lifetime fixed price per user.
Cool. What is the best way of having multiple clients within multiple portfolios? When you assign a task, it doesn't show the clients in the grouping of projects. What is the best way to get client reporting done? Big question.
Can you repeat it?
Yeah. What is the best way of having multiple clients within multiple portfolios? When you assign a task, it doesn't show the clients in the grouping of projects. What is the best way to get client reporting done?
Right. So clients are going to show up in a project roster. Here's the guest, but they're not going to be, you can't add them to portfolios. So I'd say you can have multiple clients in one portfolio because it's all project based. They're going to have access to overview, but they're only going to see the projects they're a part of. And you can actually download an overview report. So for them, they will have access to only their projects. You might not, because if you're keeping them in the same portfolio as other users, you can't just do a portfolio report because it's going to have other projects as well. I guess you could do that and skim out the projects for other clients. So I would, again, to reiterate, you can manage multiple clients in specific projects within the same portfolio because they will not by default see each other. They're only going to see the members of the project or projects they're a part of. And I would look at either independent project reports or maybe skimming through a portfolio export to get the insights you're looking for from a reporting standpoint.
Wonderful. And we did just get a comment from somebody who's already stacked 3 codes and will likely stack up to 10. It said their team and guests love the UI. It's super user-friendly.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And that's one of the most glowing bits of feedback we've gotten is that it's easy adoption. We're not throwing curveballs. I mean, this looks a lot like Slack sometimes, and it's with a purpose. We all know how to use it. So the point is to let the tool try to stay out of your way as much as possible, but give you features that you find relevant without murdering you with features. And that's kind of what our quest has been.
Wonderful. All right, we've gotten some more questions come in the last minute, so let's try to get these in files. Can I click next to view next images or next file?
Not yet, but you can, if this is like a 3-page PDF, you can click through the PDF, but I can't go to the next file this way right now.
Cool. Please show how to create tasks from sending Nifty an email.
Sure. So we covered that a little earlier, but we'll pull up the actual. So what I did here, this is our project settings, but the quickest way to get there is actually through inviting someone. You don't have to invite them. And then you go to the project settings, right? And so here's your email forwarding email. but I'm going to open this help article so we can just see how to go through this. And you can see here are the two ways to structure it: to create a task out of an email or creating a bit of discussion out of an email. And you're going to be using the project email. So in this case, we're going to say the task name. In brackets, we're going to put the list I want that task to show up, any tags we want applied to that. Anything we want to have reflected in that task, we're going to put in the body of the email. And if we want to assign anyone to this task, we'll CC them on the email. Again, I just want to reiterate, these people need to be part of the project in order for this to work. And that's for your protection.
Awesome. We had another comment that says, it's so easy to onboard staff. Don't change the simplicity of the UI.
I appreciate that.
What counts as storage towards the limits? Is it just things that you upload?
Yes, files and I believe docs are the two things that are going towards your storage.
Cool. If I wanted to increase limits and things after the deal, would I be paying monthly per user, or would it be a fixed price if you have previously bought the fixed license?
I think that's really going to come down to a per team basis. If you're looking to add 3 people, that's something we're going to offer that to. If you're looking to add 1,000 people, we might request that you go onto a plan. So if I would say to specifically address that, visit us in the Help Center.
Cool. Yeah, I've seen that question come up a couple times. I love the ambition of Sumolings and
yeah, me too. I mean, we all want your businesses to expand. So that's a great thing with Nifty. And real quick, you can also move projects across portfolios. So if you want to start everything in general and then it's time to expand, go for it. One of the mistakes I see the most is people create too many projects and then they're managing projects and not their work. Sorry, back to the questions.
No, I love it. Can we customize, okay, portfolio and projects are displayed in a fixed order A to Z. Can we customize them drag and drop?
Drag and drop and pin is coming. I'm not sure you'll see that reflect on the product roadmap. Doesn't mean it's not coming. Doesn't mean it's not coming in the near term. One thing I've seen some of our teams go pretty wild with giving alpha codes. So like A, B. It's not pretty, but it's one workaround in the meantime.
All right. Can we segment for file storage by portfolios?
Currently, no. More sorting for docs and files is definitely in our product roadmap. You can also find anything that you've uploaded independently in files. So if you just need to find that one thing you did, that's where you can do that.
Oh, neat. In addition to extra members, what happens when we've used all the storage? I love the ambition.
You'll be able to purchase storage as well.
Cool.
Again, I think that's going to come down to, do you need a little bit more storage or do you need,
a lot more storage.
700 terabytes, in which case we might have a conversation.
All right. This is great. These are just comments. I don't need to read all these aloud, but yes, I think people are excited to see how this can grow with them. We've talked about milestone templates. We've talked about, do they get back storage when they delete things?
Yeah.
That's usually how storage works. Love it.
Yeah, so you can archive a project if you want to make sure it's still there, or you can just detonate it.
Cool.
But if you do that, there's nothing we can do to help you. I apologize. So live and die by that sword.
Is there a way for clients to adjust milestones, or can that only be done by me and team members?
Clients will not be able to adjust milestones.
Is there a way, somebody asked, can you show, I've lost the question, but they wanted to see the difference between what a team member sees and what a client sees.
I can try to show that right now. I'm not sure that's a quick operation. Okay, let me see. What's the best way to do that? Okay, one sec. Let me try something here.
It did not seem like an easy thing to do, I guess.
Okay, wait. So this is where we have, I'm going to show you behind the scenes. I'm going to switch screens. You share, and we're going to this. Okay, so this is the, you still able to see my screen?
Yep, got it.
This is actually where I'm pulling all the puppet strings for all the different team members here. And so this is the guest. And you can see the guest does not see the portfolio. They can see the tasks assigned to them. They can see the overview of the project they're a part of. But they're not able to see that portfolio name, anything that might be hidden from them. they don't see. So like that UI internal milestone is not there, right? So this is what they have access to.
Wonderful. And it looks like we've gotten through most of these questions. Some of the questions that are still unanswered. One, there will be a replay of this available. It'll be online shortly. It'll also be, if you RSVP to this webinar, you will be able to get this in your email shortly. And yeah, also roadmaps coming soon. And so other things will be available to y'all. I think we got through them.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for hosting this, Lindsay. And I want to say I recognize a lot of the names who are here in this chat. So thanks so much for joining us. It's been great. A lot of great feedback, a lot of positive suggestions fed our way. So I promise, even if things don't fold the way you've suggested them, it's not because we're not listening.
Wonderful. It looks like some people are considering getting more codes. I think it sounds highly recommended. If you have not already, you can go to appsumo.com/NiftyPM to redeem your codes, starting at just $49 for a lifetime deal. And of course, it is backed by AppSumo's 60-day guarantee. So feel free to get set up, start playing around with it. I hear it's super easy to onboard your team members. So you might be sold pretty quickly on it. Thank you all so much again. Let us know how this is working for you in the comments. And of course, if you've got any more questions, you can leave those on the deal page. And yes, the roadmap is coming. Pinky promise. Thank you so much, Sky. Thank you, Malika, for answering all of the questions.
Thanks so much for having us.
You are awesome. Have a good one.
Take care.